Hi, you can see I've had a bit of a wrestle with the lawnmower. A lot of my hair and beard's gone, but at least I won't need to go to the hairdresser for a while now. Now, here's a way of thinking about things that's going to annoy some people, and they'll find it hard to get their head around it. We think of multiculturalism according to the media, especially the Herald and the ABC, that we're being respectful towards other cultures when we have a multicultural policy. And we assume the country is going to be better, richer, stronger as a result of these other inputs. That's the metaphor. And multiculturalism does help the country in some ways, but we rarely consider the negatives. And I want to talk about this in relation to racism, which is thrown around like confetti. Whenever you disagree with someone, if you're on the left, you just call them a far-right Nazi racist. Calling people names proves nothing. But it does have an impact on the average person that doesn't follow the news very much. It kind of impacts on them. They have attitudes towards people that don't agree with multiculturalism. Now, in actual fact, if you favour fairly strong multiculturalism, that's not anti-racist, it's actually racist. Because what you are doing by favouring multiculturalism is strengthening the minor cultures, and that inevitably, however you want to argue, weakens the main culture. Now, we don't have a very strong main culture now, and it's partly to multiculturalism. Countries need a backbone. Japan knows this. China knows this. Hungary knows this. Poland knows this. Denmark is starting to realise this. We've had this love affair with diversity. As I've said elsewhere, imagine you have 4 children and a wife. The wife is Greek Orthodox. You're an atheist. Your first child is Hindu. Your second child is Muslim, Sunni. Your third child is Shia, Islam. And your fourth child is some kind of nature religion from the deep past. Now, if people in the family feel strongly towards their religion, very strongly, that family will implode. When you do this to a country, unity disappears. The country starts to implode. Pauline Hanson just wants a strong major culture. That's not racist. That's just nationalism. And it's not wrong to want nationalism, which is unity. It doesn't mean war. People have got all this twisted thinking. And it's partly because unless you do, or unless you have done in the past, because it doesn't apply now, a very good humanities degree, not an architecture degree, not a medical degree, not an engineering degree, you aren't going to be educated. Dentistry, veterinary science, medicine, engineering, you become highly trained. But all that highly trained brain doesn't carry over to thinking about social and political matters much at all. It doesn't make you any smarter. It makes you better in your field, and it might give you a bit of an appreciation of science and sampling, but not much else. It's the psychology, the anthropology, the literature, the history, the political science. When it's taught properly, enables you to see things carefully. Most people aren't educated past the high school certificate or equivalent. That's past 18. They may have educated themselves. They might be autodidacts, and that's great. But they haven't had any true brain development in the social sciences, philosophy, psychology, anthropology, history, literature. And therefore, as I said, most courses, we get a highly trained person in one specific area, but they don't know any more about society except through experience than anyone else. And they think their experience is as good as someone that's done a very complex humanities degree, usually prior to 1990, because the universities have gone pretty bad in most Anglo countries like America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, by stressing all kinds of weird ideas and not allowing alternative views. But that's another story. So Pauline, because she wants a mainstream culture that's strong, and she probably doesn't want to subsidise any of the other cultures that come into Australia, she wants to allow them to exist as long as they're not in strong conflict with the mainstream culture. But we do not want to give them subsidies for developing dance, art, anything else. They have to raise that money themselves. Now, it's very hard to be precise what Australian culture is, but it's got a strong UK, England, Scottish, Irish, Welsh backbone. And that's why people come here. Because the last major revolution in England was a peaceful palace revolution in 1688. Somehow UK has worked out a way, it's not going very well at present, it's worked out a way to run a country that doesn't explode into civil war, like many countries do. Now, some of the Northern European countries have managed that too. But England's been a forerunner in these kinds of things. And the English people aren't any better. They've just learnt from their mistakes and they've made the country stronger. But it's stuttering now because it's made one mistake of allowing people that don't fit into England to overwhelm the main culture, which was working pretty well. No culture's perfect. The Scots didn't particularly like the English, and the Welsh, they didn't hate the English quite as much, but there was a bit of a clash. The Irish, of course, there was a big clash. But that's kind of settled down. And things were able to be done, and England was the home of the Industrial Revolution and the Science Revolution. They borrowed ideas from elsewhere. Now, people came to Australia, or have come to Australia, because it's stable. It's pretty boring at present with Albanese, and he's not doing great things for the country, but he's not alone there. Howard wasn't any better. But the people were attracted by the stability, by the trust that was there. And multiculturalism attacks trust, particularly if it's strong. You need more laws when there's multiculturalism. You need more laws when there's diverse languages and cultures. Japan isn't very litigious because the country is fairly unified and has been. they haven't allowed a lot of people to come into Japan, and now they've said, particularly to Islamic people, if you can't fit in, go. China's re-educating people on their border that are Islamic and won't fit in to Chinese culture. Now, we want to allow diversity and freedom of thought, which aren't necessarily available in China. But countries are always trying to get some stability and manage how much freedom there should be. So Pauline is not the racist. The people that encourage very strong multiculturalism, they're attacking the main culture, and that's racist. That's the racist. Now, in the Middle East, we have Hamas, and Iran claiming genocide by the Israelis. That's just stupid. The Israelis may have been brutal in their reaction to October the 7th, but October the 7th was as brutal as anything could be. If the Israelis were genocidal, as it's claimed by a lot of people, even in Australia, they would kill the 2 million Arabs in their own country and close down all the mosques and not allow these people to go to university, become judges, become members of parliament. They wouldn't allow that, but they do. Most people don't know that because the ABC and the Herald don't tell people about these kind of things. We're too busy worried about Epstein and Prince Andrew. Just stupid. But I'm reversing things, saying that the minority groups that won't assimilate or won't even do strong integration, which is like assimilation. Weak integration is where they want to be completely separate and is like multiculturalism. They want to maintain their own ways too strongly. Dutch people, Northern European people, English people, even Spanish and Italian and Greek people fit in better than people from the Middle East and many parts of Asia. Now, it's not always the fault of the people coming in, because sometimes the cultures are so different and the people look different. We can't discount this look different. We do try and discount it, but that's just stupid. So Australians have got to be more welcoming, and newcomers have got to be more humble and more careful and try and fit in. If you're coming to Australia, you're virtually saying, I want to be Australian. If you can't say that, go back. Pauline has said she'd drive people to the airport as a nice person if they don't really want to become Australian. So the racism has been encouraged by strong multiculturalism and this idea that white culture, particularly males, are toxic. Christian white males are on the nose, and yet they're the ones that have driven modernity, from which Asia and many other countries have benefited. White males, white Christian males, haven't been perfect, but they haven't been terrorists either. So we need to not throw words around like racism. It's not a good term. And Thomas Sowell, who's himself a black American, he's just disgusted at this use of the word racism and people's ignorance about slavery, which he doesn't deny. But people do not know just to get on the slave issue, that black African chieftains sold whole tribes to British slave traders. And people just don't seem to know that. It wasn't that the British slave traders went deep into dark Africa and captured tribes. They didn't. These black chieftains traded their own black people, other tribes though, for guns, food, and other products. Somehow the schools are just not giving a balanced education, and the universities don't do it either. So that's a new way of looking at racism and other issues. Thank you.